At the beginning of the chapter, Matthew tells us about Frank Castle, who is also known as the Punisher. He says that Frank was a murderer who was killing criminals in a war that only he can see. Although he was insane, he was a one-man army. It was until the Hands took him, and their high priestess Chaos took him, and only to raise him as a beast for their benefit. She made him a leader and gave him an army to lead. Now Frank was like a living hell on earth, and Chaos knows that, but the Whisperer of the Hands, Akka, had her plans. They were not the plans of the Hand. Instead, she was following some prophecy. Then he says that Elektra and the Stick keep on telling him that. Here Elektra says to Matthew that he was a fool. Matthew says to her that at least it was not him who was caught murdering the president on camera. He further says to her that he knows that it was not the right time to take his crew and go into the outside world. Elektra says to Matthew that the whole world was trying to find them, and this island was the only thing that was keeping them safe from others' eyes. She says that they have to focus because Akka told her that there is going to be a war on Yasuhara Plains, and one of them will die. Matthew puts on his mask and says that Goldie has already stolen his free will from him, and now these prophecies were doing the same. He tells Elektra that it was a trap and that Akka was baiting them. He says that he has already lost so much to fate, and now he just wants to do what he has always done. Help people, and he suggests to Elektra that she should do the same. Then Matthew goes out. In his mind, he was recalling that it has been months since he started a community on Makanrushi Island. His goal was to teach the inhabitants of the island how to become good. His teammate, Speed Demon, asks Matthew if he thought that Daredevil broke them out of the prison to fight ninjas or some other villains. But he wants them to fight cops. He says that just got out and now they will have to break the law again. Matthew says that they all were lawbreakers, but this time they were going to break the laws to help other people. The police were forcing the people out of their homes. Matthew says that the building was sold to a developer named Castlemax, and the inhabitants were given eviction notices on the basis of manufacture lease violence. In reality, it all was money and purchase power. 2 police officers were telling Mr. Ramirez to open the door and that they should leave the premises because of the evacuation. Mr. Ramirez says to him that he was not going to leave. He was tired of Castlemax's schemes. The policeman shouts and says that it was not a threat. They have been issued an evacuation notice, and another policeman suggests breaking the door as the building was going to get demolished anyways. They break the door and barge in. The policemen point their guns at Mr. Ramirez and his wife and tell him to drop the gun. At this moment they hear a voice. They turn back and sees Daredevil along with one of his teammates. Daredevil tells the policeman to drop his gun, and Daredevil's comrade says to the policeman that otherwise they will arrest them. As the policeman tries to resist, Daredevil and his teammate easily take them down. Daredevil threatens the police officer by saying that if his job was to protect property over a person, then he should change his job and he should help the people. Here, Matthew hears Bullet entering the floor above him. Bullet hears the voice of a policeman who was telling the other policeman to handcuff the woman. As he enters the room, he sees that the policeman slapped a young kid, and the other was handcuffing the boy's mother. In anger, Bullet punches a policeman, and when he turns towards the second one, Daredevil holds his punch and kicks the gun of the policeman. Daredevil says to Bullet that they should only do violence when it's necessary. He says to Bullet that hurting the policeman will only make Bullet feel well, and that it was a selfish act. Just then Daredevil hears Castlemax security telling their men to blow up the building. Daredevil tells Speed Demon that there are explosives in the building. Daredevil thinks in his mind that Castlemax security will just blow up the building, while people and the police was still in it. They just want to end it. He further says that the Speed Demon can easily run through the whole building in a matter of few seconds, but HW would not find the explosives. Then he says that although the Speed Demon can't find the explosives, he can. With his supernatural senses, he can feel everything that the wind touches inside the building. Daredevil then informs Speed Demon of the location of the explosives, and Speed Demon quickly disarms them. Meanwhile, on the rooftop, a girl was telling the policeman to stay away from her. The policeman says to her that her parents were already taken out of the building and says to her that it was not safe. A bomb was also installed on the rooftop. Matthew finds it out and tells James, his comrade, who was outside, to look towards the roof. As the bomb goes off, the girl falls from the building. James quickly catches the girl with the help of his robotics legs and says to her that his name was still Man. What's her name? Then Matthew says that 2 parts of his plan were all ready, and the third part was about to begin as the policemen started running out of the building. Their chief tells them to go back and finish the job. At this point, a girl comes to her and tells Captain Malfort that her name was Terry Fowling and she was the representative of the people. She gives him a notice and says that the court has delayed the evacuation process as a shred of new evidence was found. Matthew thinks in his mind that he is just an average superhero, but at the same time, he was an excellent lawyer. Meanwhile, Clive Marcus the CEO of Castlex was talking to someone on the phone and was saying that it was not good. The building was theirs and they can whatever they want to do. At this moment, Daredevil and his team arrive there. He says to Clive that he knows that he was the CEO of Castlex and that he was just doing his job. Clive gets scared and asks Daredevil who was he. Daredevil says to him that it was funny how Clive, the CEO of Castlex, was trying to make his shareholders happy because otherwise he would lose his job. And the only way to do that was unlimited growth, year after year, again and again, no matter what it costs. Or was he done? Then he says to Clive that he was here to tell him that Clive will stop all of this otherwise. Next time he won't come and use words. Then they leave his house, and on the way out, Bullet says to Daredevil that he told him that they should use violence when it's necessary. Does he think that violence is only physical, and says that Clive was going to have nightmares because of what just happened, and asks Daredevil if he should just say that he enjoyed it. Daredevil says he didn't, while in his mind he says he did. He further says to Bullet that sometimes fear is the only gentle weapon that can be used to stop someone, and they wanted Clive to stop doing what he was doing. Bullet then says to Daredevil then why didn't he bring him back to his island and teach him how to do things like he was teaching them. He asks why people like him be the only ones who are on that island. Why no one is rich and powerful on that island. Bullet says to Daredevil that he understands what Daredevil was trying to do. Daredevil says to him that it was working, and Bullet himself knows that. Bullet says that he knows it was, and further adds that Daredevil even managed to convince Bullet to try something new. But he has a son who is out there in the world alone, so he can't go back to the island with them while knowing that his son needs him. Bullet says that he will go back to his son, as his son was the only reason why Bullet was trying to become good. He says that he can't promise, but he will try his best to do good or to do less bad. Daredevil agrees to this and gives Bullet a device. He says that whenever Bullet feels that he is in trouble, he can rely on them and come back, as the island was his home now. He says that he will try his best to help Bullet, and tells Bullet that he has dedicated his everything to his mission. And Bullet says that no one was ever there for him, and it feels weird as the first person who said it was also the person who punches him in the face from time to time. When Daredevil gets back to the island, Elektra tells him that she has something to show him and tells him to follow her. As they go into a room, a man tells Matthew that the prophecy book has started to reveal things on its own. He says to him that Frank was on a murdering spree and was heading towards Usuhara. Frank thinks that there is a group of killers hiding there and they need to be wiped out. That man says to Matthew that they will have to stop, otherwise thousands of people will die. As Matthew looks at the book, he sees flashbacks, but Elektra soon brings him back and tells him that Bullet was trying to communicate with them. When they ask Bullet what was wrong, he tells them that Frank took his boy and says that it was all his fault. He says all of this while he was fighting some ninjas. Those ninjas quickly take Bullet down and say to Daredevil that if he wants to see Bullet alive, he knows where he has to go. That man says to Matthew that the book told them all of this and they have to stop Frank. Elektra says that Matthew thinks that it's all a trap, and now she also thinks the same. Frank and Akka are trying to trap them by letting them think that they can save Bullet and his son. Matthew says that Frank will kill Bullet because that is what he does to criminals, but he won't kill the boy. The child needed their help even if it was a trap. They look at each other and finally agree to save the boy. Meanwhile, on the other side, Frank tells his teammates not to hurt the boy. Bullet was a criminal, but he didn't choose his father. And that's all for today, guys. Stay tuned to get more new videos. Stay safe and keep watching.